here on Memorial Day 2020 on the Broadkill River here along the coast of Delaware. First of all, Memorial Day, this is unlike any Memorial Day I can remember in my last 20 years as an elected official in our state. Normally, we start the day with a solemn ceremony at the Delaware Memorial Bridge. And then after lunch, we gather at the Veterans Cemetery on the C&D Canal. And today, as we commemorate Memorial Day, for all of us, it should be a solemn commemoration and a memory of all those men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country and our state. I came over here to the Broadkill from Fort Miles, which was an Army installation that protected the Delaware River and Bay in World War II, and now is a museum that honors those who served in those conflicts. And so today, as we honor the memory of all the Delawareans, all the members of the United States military over the years, hundreds of thousands who made the ultimate sacrifice, as we think about the situation that we're in with the COVID-19 pandemic, we're reminded of the incredible sacrifices that so many Americans have made over the years. As we think about all the sacrifices that we're called on to make during this very difficult time over the last 3 weeks. And I just want to thank every Delawarean for the sacrifices that each of you have made. Some way more than others, as they've had their businesses closed as a result of the pandemic, who've lost loved ones from the virus, to those who are on the front lines, our healthcare workers, our Division of Public Health and the Department of Health and Human Services, and all the first responders across our state have responded in an incredible way. And we're here today with Jamie Mack, who's an employee at the Division of Public Health, who's just done incredible work, particularly over the last several weeks, working with business sectors, with Secretary Jeff Bullock, the Secretary of State, with Damian DeStefano and his team at the Division of Small Business, as they've worked with sectors to figure out how they can reopen the economy safely and allow people to come back to work and allow people to come back to their businesses. And I spent several hours in Rehoboth on the boardwalk and on Rehoboth Avenue, and I was incredibly impressed by what Rehoboth is doing to protect people who are vacationing and coming to the boardwalk and the beaches. We lifted restrictions leading into this holiday weekend, and with some reservations about how folks were going to behave, and I just can't be more complimentary of Mayor Coons and his team in Rehoboth, all the coastal town mayors, Mayor Becker here in Lewis, and so many of them that we've worked with over the last several weeks, thinking about how we could protect the people and the businesses and the health of the community in each of the coastal towns. And they've been incredible partners. And today, as I toured Rehoboth, I saw the fruits of their labor, and I also saw Delawareans and people who've come to Delaware who no doubt were exercising beyond their 14-day quarantine, who were out on the boardwalk wearing face masks, who were making sure they were keeping 6-foot social distancing. And so today, I'm really happy to report that we will continue to roll forward and protect the health of Delawareans. We will continue to reopen different sectors of our business community. We will do it in a way that's safe. I've been assured by so many business owners that they can do this, they can do it safely. They will not relax. They understand that the virus is still with us, that this invisible enemy that invaded our country 3 or 4 months ago is still here, but we are in the process of getting it under control and stopping the spread in our states and in our communities. And so on this Memorial Day, as we honor those who made the ultimate sacrifice, we should also take a moment to thank all the folks who have pitched in and sacrificed over the last 3 months to defeat this invisible enemy, this COVID-19, and the pandemic which it created across our country. You know, Delaware is considered and thought to be a state of neighbors. It was one of Governor Jack Markell's things that he used to always say, and it's truly the case. And we've seen it in large measure over the last 3 months. And I just couldn't be happier today on this kind of cloudy day, Memorial Day, here along the Broadkill River at the beach and on the coast of Delaware, that we're ready to continue to roll forward. And we're able to do this because people have thought of their neighbors first, pitched in, realized that we're all in this together. Those who sacrificed as veterans did so as units. They didn't do it one man for them, every man for themselves. They did it as a band of brothers, as the movies goes, and that's what we've tried to do over the last 3 months. I want to thank all of my cabinet. Secretary Garvin is here, and his folks have a lot of work to do over the next several months through the summer season to protect folks who want to come to the Delaware beaches and parks and enjoy the outdoors and enjoy our beautiful state. I do again want to thank those first responders, the healthcare workers, everybody who's been exposed to people that are carrying the virus, those that were inflicted with that illness, because as I said, they've made sacrifice greater than many of us. I want to thank Jamie Mack and his team in particular. And if it's okay with him, call him to the podium to just say a word or two about the work that he and his team have been about. And it's simply finding a way to enable business sectors to come back online safely, and so that we don't create conditions where the virus can spread more broadly, where all the sacrifice that has been made over the last 3 months will go for nothing if we don't keep it under control. And it's the measures that he's working with now as we think about more reopening for the summer season and the tourist season that will protect all of us. And so, Jamie, if you want to come to the podium, and I'm going to do a little sanitizer thing with the microphone, and then probably not to your standard, but let me just I'll stand back.
I just want to thank the governor for the opportunity to be here to celebrate Memorial Day, as well as to talk about everything that we're doing at the division and with our partner agencies throughout the state. We're having daily conversations with DEMA, the Division of Small Business, and other agencies and partners and stakeholders to ensure that we're striking the right balance between the safety and public health of the population, as well as limiting the impacts to economics and the social environment, especially down here at the beach during the summer. I think we're going to continue to have those conversations, and I think we're getting to the point now where we're almost having specific conversations with individual businesses and some of the smaller industries, making sure that we've captured everybody, that we're representing everyone's interests and not leaving anybody out in the cold.
Thank you, Jamie. Put your mask back on, and I'll come back to the podium for any questions. Yes, Tom.
You were down in Rehoboth earlier today. I know talking with some business owners down there, and also people just visiting the beach, there seemed to be a desire to get back to what is normal life, so to speak. Can you talk about...
Yeah, so I've been hearing that for weeks now, obviously, and as I've been saying during that whole period of time, the decisions that we've had to make, working with Jamie and his team to reopen the sectors of the economy, those decisions and to allow people to circulate more in public have been way harder than the decisions to close things down, where there was a lot of fear, a lot of concern. I can remember the beach town mayors, elected officials in this region. Have to have a shout out to Speaker of the House Pete Schwarzkopf, who's been really helpful and very thoughtful in helping us work with the leaders here. And they were telling me you need to close the beaches, you need to prohibit short-term rentals, and that was the right thing to do. Now, as we reopen, it's a lot more difficult to figure out: are we ready? Do we have the conditions on the ground where businesses can safely reopen? Are people going to follow the guidance? And what I saw today really impressed me with respect to how folks were wearing face coverings on the boardwalk as required, and some as recommended on the beach, and how on the beach folks were spread out, on the boardwalk and up and down Rehoboth Avenue, the same thing. And so it shows that attitudes have changed in a significant way. I think back to the weekend prior to St. Patrick's Day in March, where it was a beautiful weekend. We were at same place we were today at Fort Miles and Cape Henlopen State Park, and the people just rushed onto the beaches in a way that was very unsafe. And it was after that we had to start to shut things down. So I just see a different attitude. I see a willingness to accept that the new normal is going to be different, but we have to reach a new normal, recirculate. And for us at Public Health, Jamie and his team, it means educating business owners, working with them to figure out how you can operate safely, and then enforcement. And enforcement for us starts with education. One of the impressive things about Rehoboth was all the signage, all the markings on the boardwalk and on the streets in front of retail establishments. It just is a really great indication that we have the conditions on the ground, we have the focus and the attention of business owners and the public, so that we can move to a new normal, which is going to be different than the old normal.
Big emotion city over the weekend. Kind of packed at times.
Yeah, looks like a way to not to do things, frankly. So the question was about photographs of the boardwalk in Ocean City. That looks to me like not the way to do things. What I saw in Rehoboth and what I've heard was the situation along the Delaware coast is the way to do it. To gradually reopen things so you don't have this rush, this onslaught of folks which are going wild and risking all the progress that we've made over the last 3 months. All I would ask people to do is think of those folks who made those huge sacrifices really for our own health and safety. Now it's up to us to safely go back, to patronize their businesses, to spend money in their businesses, whether it's at the curbside or in a restaurant that's opened with a lower capacity. We've made it possible for restaurants to apply for outdoor seating space expansion, which has gone over very well. And now we have to safely reopen, and we have to circulate money back into the economy so folks can go back to work.
Nick Ross from the Cape Gazette. Speaking of enforcement and education, at the beginning of the holiday weekend, there was a pretty significant checkpoint on Route 1 just north of Nassau that caused some pretty big backups. And there were some complaints from local people who got caught up in it. Can you just kind of talk about what they were trying to...
Yeah, I apologize for that. It's not the way we wanted it to happen. Basically, it was a way of trying to educate, frankly, out-of-state visitors of their obligation to quarantine. That whole measure was designed to prevent large crowds, right? And to the extent possible to make the rolling reopening for Delawareans. And that created too much of an inconvenience, and it didn't turn out the way I wanted. I apologize for that.
And then, as you said, we're moving forward, obviously, towards phase 1. Any update on short-term rentals?
Yeah, it's hot on everybody's mind. We'll be making, as I said at the end of last week, tomorrow. And suffice to say, I was very impressed with what I saw today. And as I said a minute ago, I feel much more comfortable about moving forward because I think that I saw it, the business owners are really attentive to the protections they need to make. I saw that Rehoboth Beach in particular, Mayor Coons and his team, I talked to the captain of the beach patrol, and a number of his looked like they were all men there, and couldn't tell with the hats and the face coverings exactly, but they're ready. The education's out there, the signage is out there. I think we're ready, and the whole idea is to do it in a gradual kind of way, so we don't have this big onslaught like we saw over the line in Ocean City, and we can gradually move into toward the 4th of July weekend. And so that's the way that we wanted to do it from the CDC's perspective, more of a rolling reopening. The original guidance out of CDC was phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. We talked to them about maybe doing it interim steps, and they felt like that was as good or better than strict phases where you get a lot of people to come out all at one time. I think part of it is getting the public and business owners familiar and used to doing things differently as they have. I mean, you go on Rehoboth Avenue today in the boardwalk, and the way they're doing business looks a lot different than the way they did 3 months ago. And the way people were on the boardwalk with masks, staying separate, recognizing the risks there. I would say two other things. One is, the largest outbreak of COVID-19 cases has been here in Sussex County. Now, it's been concentrated more in the central part of the county. Folks who live there circulate. There are no barriers separating the eastern side from the central and western side. In fact, a lot of those folks that live in those communities work in businesses here in the beach areas. And so when we first started, I think the most notable part about it, the state's response to COVID-19 was the way we really came together with our partners, the hospital partners, Bay Health, BB, with Dr. Tam, who's new to the community, unbelievable leader there, and with Nanacoke, to test thousands of poultry industry workers and members of the communities in which they live. Probably over 10,000 by the time it's all said and done, in conjunction with the hospitals that I just mentioned. When we first started, and Jamie remembers this because he was on the ground in the plants trying to get all the restrictions, all the measures that ultimately they put in place and got more comfortable with. We were testing at infection rates close to 30%. This past week, as we'll finish up, I think in the Selbyville plant this week, we're at infection rates of 10% and less. And so when people say, what are your criteria? It's arbitrary. It's not arbitrary. It's based on the science. It's based on the advice that we get from public health, and it's based on what we see, the situation on the ground. And what we're seeing here in the beach communities today is impressive and inspires confidence as we look down the road. Yes, the question about whether we can, specifically about the question about when we can expect news on the short-term rentals is, as I said last week, we'll have some announcement tomorrow, which is Tuesday, right? All the days kind of blend together. So, and that's in large measure why I wanted to come down here and see for myself firsthand. I've been making the point over these number of weeks that I don't make these decisions as governor by myself. I have whole teams of people that provide guidance and advice. We follow the science. We look at the situation on the ground. We use some common sense. We involve elected officials, particularly the mayors in the beach towns in the case of the things that we're talking about today. Speaker Schwarzkopf again and members of the General Assembly have been part of that. We have a weekly call with leadership to make those decisions. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's my decision, and I'll take responsibility for those that don't work out.
Governor, top of WBOC again. I've heard from the Realtor Association down in Sussex County that there's a little bit of concern that July 4th, that holiday, could become a big crowding point.
Yeah, the question is, there's concern about the July 4th being a crowded, really crowded situation. I think the point being, and I think it's a good one, and we had a long discussion at the end of last week and on Friday night in particular with the industry, is that you don't all of a sudden want to turn the lights on with one flick of the switch, right? You want to gradually push that dimmer switch up. And now we've moved through with the short-term rental ban, with the out-of-state traveler quarantine through Memorial Day. And the results were so impressive. And I would argue so successful, particularly if you compare to the states, New Jersey and Maryland. And so now we are ready, I think, during June to roll, to push that dimmer switch up, so you're not pushing the switch just on July 4th. I agree with that. And I think, based on what they've told me, that the normal schedule of arrangements, for want of a better term, of rentals tends to slack off in the weekends during June and provide a gradual reopening, if you will, just normally. And that makes a lot of sense. They can verify that and have offered to do so. So I think that's the way we should look at June. And I don't want I have not got with our team to share with them the information that we have here, but that should give you an indication of where I'm leaning. It's certainly the approach we want to take, right? Gradually, using June to gradually reopen so that July 4th weekend isn't this switch that turns on and you create this big flood of folks. Now, folks are going to want to come, and we want them to come safely, right? We just need to warm up, if you will, to the provisions and protections that businesses need to take and that tourists need to take and keep in mind, so that everybody's safe and doesn't create a wider spread of the invisible enemy, which is still among us.
Governor, I guess just what would you ask people in the coming weeks with phase one? I mean, we're a week away, I believe. So what would you ask people to do as they get ready? I mean, this has been a trying time for a lot of people. What do you want people to do?
It has been a very trying time. And I want the people that I work for to know that I've heard the pain that they've been through. I understand the inconvenience of all of this. I want them to know that the decisions we made as a team with other elected officials, with the coastal mayors, with input from the business community, with the faith community with respect to places of worship, that all those decisions were made with the purpose of protecting public health and protecting everyone's safety. And as it turned out, protecting the most vulnerable among them, us, our senior citizens, our grandmothers and grandfathers, moms and dads. You've heard me talk about my own mom, who's 89 years old. She's ready for it to be over. And we have been successful in pushing down, flattening the curve, as the scientists say. And so we shouldn't allow all that sacrifice to go to waste now. We should lean into it a little bit more. We should not become complacent. We should recognize that the new normal is different than the old way, but we ought to enjoy ourselves. We ought to take some time during the summer to relax, to get away maybe from folks that usually summertime is the time to get together with family. Maybe this year it's a time to spend some time, on the beach without a large gathering. We certainly ought to, on this Memorial Day weekend, think about those men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country, all the veterans There's a saying in the veterans community: all gave some gave all. And today we recognize those who gave all in a solemn way. And we approach this next week as we move into the official phase one of this war, this battle, with some level of confidence that we've done our best, and we're going to do the same as we move into June.